Hello and welcome to Business Reporter's Future of Financial Services and Banking campaign. I'm Alistair Greener. On your way into work this morning, assuming you aren't working from home right now, you likely used your bank card a few times, whether it was paying for coffee, topping up your travel card, or filling up at the petrol station. These transactions probably involved little more than waving your bank card at a machine and going on your way. It seems like we've reached a point where day-to-day transactions couldn't be any quicker or more convenient, for customers at least. But for merchants on the receiving end of these payments, it's often a different story. With us in the studio today is James Neville, CEO of Citizen, to talk about how taking payments, not just making them, could be made easier. Is there anything else that can be improved when it comes to payments?
Certainly there's so much can be improved in payments, notwithstanding the time and speed and security of making that payment, and ultimately the cost of transacting payments, particularly when it comes to cards.
And that's the thing, isn't it? For us as consumers, they're nice and easy, aren't they? We use them all the time. It's not an issue. But for merchants, it's a different story. Tell us about that side of things.
So merchants have to accept cards. It's the default option for many because they are so ubiquitous. But they don't come without their own problems. They are fraught with fraud. You can lose your card. You can have it stolen, sold on the dark web. The cost of accepting a card payment is disproportionately high. You can pay in the high percents just for accepting a card. And merchants obviously want to reduce as much cost as possible because they operate on very, very tight margins.
It's clear, obviously, they will do anything that they can as a merchant to reduce the costs of fraud and other general costs. So what other alternative payment methods are there for them?
So there are e-wallets, and then there are account-to-account payment platforms like ourselves, which remove many of the intermediaries on a transaction, ultimately reducing the cost of those merchants.
Tell us a bit more about the Citizen solution, how that works.
So we're a cardless payment provider. We enable merchants to accept payments from consumers just using their digital banking apps, ultimately reducing the intermediaries and the costs of making those transactions. Now, when you buy something online, let's say you bought a jumper or a new suit today, you went along and you added your card details, you said pay, the card details are then sent off to the acquiring platform, which contacts the relevant banks and debits and credits the money. And there's a lot of intermediaries that take a cut of that transaction. So you will have interchange from the schemes, you will have the gateway fee for where you actually paid, and then you have acquiring fees in the middle. When you pay with Citizen, there are less intermediaries. So what we've done is allowing the consumer to pay directly from their bank. We introduce the customer to the transaction by virtue of email or QR code. So they scan a QR code on their screen. That redirects them to a bank selector screen. They're redirected across to their mobile banking experience where they agree to pay for that item. And then we handle the whole transaction seamlessly. So less parties, less intermediary parties on the transaction. It's safer, quicker and easier for the consumer to pay, and also with less fraud because you're presenting your payment on your phone using what's called strong customer authentication. So you use your Face ID, we use your fingerprint to pay, which ultimately reduces fraud and makes it simpler for the consumer to pay.
Okay, so you've talked there about the costs being reduced. Give us an idea, what are we talking about here?
So we're talking about fractions of what cards would cost a merchant. So many platforms you can charge between 1 and 2% is fairly common. We typically charge about 0.5% on transaction, which when you consider how much we save in frauds, how much quicker we present the transaction, it's a net gain to the merchant.
Okay, so now give us a picture of what this actually looks like. Do you have maybe an example or a case study of a cardless payment?
So we operate across a number of sectors, all with slight variations in the customer-consumer journey. One of our partners provides a charitable solution, so they operate, I think, about 500 charities under one roof. The cost of making a payment is super simple, but we are the only way that you can make a donation. Clearly their demographic is quite broad. It's everything from 20 to 60. Conversion is very high, which proves that everybody of all ages can use it. And then we have other solutions where people are using us in a table service scenario. So throughout the pandemic, one of our electronic point of sale providers integrated us as a way to pay at table. And the solution there is very simple. You scan a QR code at table, you select your bank, you redirect it to your mobile banking experience, and you go pay. So no PINs, no passwords, no credit card numbers or debit card numbers to find in your wallet, and ultimately a faster payment process for the consumer. We also then have a number of online trading platforms that work with us, where it's important to know who the person is behind the transaction. So where did the money come from, and who am I ultimately paying out money on the other side? So again, we use the customer's digital banking to connect identity and money. So you can be assured that it's James making a deposit or James withdrawing money to his bank account. Very important in a regulated environment where KYC and AML rules need to be applied.
Now, you've talked a lot about the advantages for merchants, which are really clear. The problem is you've got to get the consumer to buy into this as well. You know, life for us at the moment is really easy with the systems that we have. So how are you going to inspire consumers to adopt this new cardless system?
So is it really easy to pay with a card? I mean, you've got to take your wallet out, you've got to key in a very long card number, as you call it. You've got to type the CVV off the back, and maybe your wallet's not in your pocket, maybe your wallet's somewhere else. So actually the process of making a card payment is very manual, and it is frustrating and takes a bit of time. There's always better ways to pay. So we feel that the consumer experience, the time and speed of making a payment just with your face or with your fingerprint is a much better experience. And that's one way for consumers to start making a choice. The other way is to start to shift their behaviors by rewarding them for paying with us. And that's the direction that we're going next year, where we are providing a digital rewards scheme that will allow consumers to share in the success of our business by paying with us.
What you've been describing is very much a response to the challenges of payments today. Let's scroll forward and look to the future. Where do you see this all going? What do you think the payments environment is going to look like in, say, 10 years?
So I think the dominant way of paying online will be account to account. So it will be directly through your digital bank account. We see that under PSD2 changing massively in Europe. Firstly, we also see Asia, Australia, Canada, and subsequently the US moving towards account-to-account real-time payment systems. So that's one fairly dominant thread. I think the other will be stable coins in the future, people paying with a dollar or a pounds backed stable coin. It's cheaper, efficient, you can do cross-border transactions with it. And I think we'll find, in the end of the decade, a bit of a mix of somewhere between crypto and account-to-account payments.
Coming back to today now, and we've talked a lot about this new cardless system. For anybody watching who may be a key decision maker, what are the main messages you would like them to remember?
So we're able to reduce the cost of payment to merchants, ultimately reducing fraud, friction, and fees, giving a really stellar customer experience for their customers, making it simpler for them to pay, and ultimately reducing the cost to the merchant.